And I wanted to explore why Starz, a band that had Jack Douglas producing two of their albums, Jack Douglas obviously produced Aerosmith and Cheap Trick. They toured extensively opening for Aerosmith in the 70s. They shared management with Kiss. It's like this band had so many opportunities, similar opportunities as these big bands, but they never made it. So I wanted to explore why.
Yeah, like you said, all of the elements were there. And once again, just shows kind of the cohesiveness between, all of these bands in that, okay, so Starz, Cheap Trick, and Aerosmith had the same producer. Starz and Kiss had the same management. Of course, the genius Bill Aucoin. It's one of those things I never realized all of the kind of the symmetry between them until you wrote this book about it. So I think when we were talking kind of more about Starz, I guess just to kind of go right into it, what was the reason why? Because like you said, the material is there, the team is there. Michael Lee Smith, the singer, kind of looks like a Jagger-esque type like Steven Tyler did. They got a great guitar player with a great rock and roll name of Richie Rano. I mean, everybody knows that name. But it just didn't click. And like you mentioned, there are other bands like that. Like Angel could be almost confused with Starz.
And they were very, very much. I mean, in fact, people I spoke to for the book, a lot of people said, oh, weren't they the band that were on Casablanca? No, that was Angel. And, they were the same. They were from the same era. In fact, right before the pandemic struck, they were going to be going on tour together, Starz and Angels. So,
oh, wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So looking into their career for the book, I spoke to a bunch of people and I think the band themselves, I think a big part of why they think they didn't make it because they just weren't on the radio. And back then you needed a song on the radio to sell a ton of records. And, they had a minor hit with a song called Cherry Baby, which to me is their best song, but it went to number 33 and never really went up from there. And they weren't able to capitalize on that. So I think the fact that radio just didn't take to them and they just weren't in the public consciousness enough, that was kind of, that kind of explained why they never really reached those heights.
It's funny though, because like you said, they spent a lot of money and, even to this day to play the radio game, you need to spend money. And I think it was Capitol Records that you said they yes. did spend the money on them. And also once again, had this kind of, you need a strong manager who can say, okay, if you want Kiss to do this, then you got to do that with Starz. Mm-hmm. So once again, it seems like everything was all lined up and just, was the material not strong enough maybe? If the fans have to get into it, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's all opinion. I mean, people have different ideas of, what a great song is. I happen to love all of Starz's records. Mm-hmm. I've heard from some other musicians who actually love Starz. They said their songs are sometimes a little too complicated. They just went off in many directions. They weren't straightforward enough. Also, some of their material was really kind of nasty. I mean, just lyrically, It was sardonic and violent and kind of sexist and smarmy. I mean, that was 70s rock a lot of the time. But, Michael Lee Smith as a lyricist probed some very disturbing places. So that could have been a little detrimental as well. And I think a lot of people back then were kind of suspicious of bands like Starz who were like the second band from a management roster. It's like, I think many people saw them as kind of molded in Kiss's image. They never really came up from the bars and the club scene because, like you said, Aucoin used his leverage, having Kiss, to put Starz on. They opened immediately in arenas and theaters for Peter Frampton and ZZ Top. Yeah. They never really played the club scene, so they never had a grassroots following. So I think that people might have looked on that with a bit of suspicion as well.